full agenda, pretty full house. So if I need everyone to stand and rise and join me in the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. If I could get motion to approve the agenda, but he has any,
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
right? What? We have a motion and support, so we'll move on to the agenda. Starting out with a pool update from Kim. All right, Kim Andeline.
Kind of a team package over there, so. First thing I'd like to note is that Norm apologizes for not being able to be here today, but with his dialysis schedules and stuff like that. If you have any questions that I can't answer or Kim can't answer, feel free to let us know. Make sure we email him and we'll get to the answers that we need.
Okay.
Me too. Good. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, we'd like to thank everybody for taking interest. We had a good meeting. Mr. Osborne was over at the pool, did a quick walkthrough with us the other day, so that was very positive. Thank you, sir, for coming and doing that. We're currently in the beginning stages of our annual maintenance shutdown, so pool is closed and empty at this point. Kind of a sad little thing to see with all the water out of it, but and all the regular normal maintenance is getting done, checking all the tiles and the cleaning and painting and different things that we do every year. By the maintenance team, as well as our lifeguards have been pitching in the last couple of years. They come and they take ownership of the building and they help clean and scrub and paint. And so I'd like to note that our lifeguards are very much appreciated for all the extras that they do and they come and put into the facility for us. We have a great group of kids that help do that for us. So then one of our big things this year has been the Whibbit. We were able to purchase the Whibbit through the Friends of the Plaza Pool. They purchased it for us and was able to donate that in. It's increased our rentals considerably. We have a nice supply of weekends that people are wanting to rent that and be able to play on it. It's for adults as well as kids. So that's been a big hit with the public lately, being able to rent the Whibbit. Memberships have increased considerably. So that's always a nice thing. We'd like to still increase them more. We're looking at different ways of potentially bringing in more people, whether that means we figure out a way to increase hours. Where right now we close from about 12:30 in the afternoon and we're closed to about 3. If there's a way we can increase hours and pay the lifeguards and staff to be there during that time frame where we think we can bring in different programming and possibly be open during those hours, that's something that we're looking at doing. And then last thing I have is the chlorine tank has been replaced. It was on its last legs. So we ordered in a new chlorine tank. It's much safer. This one actually has a lid. It's not a 55-gallon vat that's open chlorine that the kids could have fallen into. And it does have an agitator, which we're anticipating saving on the chemical cost because the actual chlorine will be diluted better and we should be putting less into the pool the way, because what we had, the chlorine was actually forming in the bottom of the tank. And if we didn't get it stirred well enough, it was just sitting there. It wasn't getting used as well as it could have. So, your turn. To pick up where I missed.
So the Whibbit rentals have increased. Like she said, we got the Whibbit in January. Our first private rental was March 2nd, and we've had 15 rentals since then. So that's very good. I'm finding more trends. So like May was really slow for us. I like to move our maintenance. I shut down. I talked to Jesse about that to May because we just turned down like 1,500 in rentals. That's 2 weeks, which is huge impact. Plus, we couldn't do swim lessons or private lessons. And that brings me to another point. So swim lessons, we're doing really good on them. I think we've done a little over 350 since January, students that we've instructed. But I'm looking into writing a grant to improve our swim lessons because we're really getting inundated with private lessons, and we can't keep up. Because I feel like the instructors, they're 15 and older. They just don't have the prior qualifications. And this program that I'm looking at, it's costly. It's about $1,500 for the year, but if we don't have to bring anybody in to instruct us, it's all online. And so we're hoping to implement that by September, and then we can have goals, right? So like if you say, well, level 1, what does that include? It's floating on your front and back, but we can have other goals that this program sets out for us. So that's something I'm currently working on. Right now with the drop-in rates, we're bringing in about $65 to $80 a day in drop-ins. That's great.
A lot better than last year.
Yeah. We're trending to do over 40,000 people in the pool this year.
Wow.
Yeah, last year was 30,000, the year before that was 22 or 23, and then 19 the year before that, so. Yeah, thanks.
Right. You mentioned, I think we talked about this before, there's no way to track like new people, is there? I know you track the people that come in. I thought when Robin and I came in to talk, there was discussion about tracking individual, because if I come in there 10 times a week, that's part of that number, correct?
Right,
But there's no way to track new members, or is there?
not really, not at this time. Other than I could tell you who's new, because I'm there, so I would say we're bringing in like new people, like for this last month, probably about 25 people.
Okay.
And our Facebook is really increasing the amount of people that are watching. So we grew from 340 followers to 3,070 right now.
Who maintains that Facebook?
I do.
Okay.
Yep. We're reaching about 14,000 people each post.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I don't have any.
I'll just make a comment that I think that's about the swimming lessons. We're surrounded by lakes,
Exactly.
so.
That's the leading cause of death for ages 1 through 4. I could tell you all the stats. Over 4,000 people a year drown in
Sure,
the United States.
believe it.
Yeah, so,
That's good.
yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see. So we will move on to Chet Spencer and Donna Hardee's, but I want to make a quick announcement. We're trying something new with the public comment. It helps us if you would be so kind to fill this out. I think they're by the door, and just give it to Kim. It helps us, get your address. This is not mandatory, by the way. It's just helpful. Things get a little bit speeded and it helps us, get things announced and be clear where we're at. So, okay, we'll move on to Chet Spencer and Donna Hardee's for the Up North Prevention.
Good morning to a full house. Always nice to share what we do at Catholic Human Services Up North Prevention. So the reason that we're coming before the board today, I know Bert sits on the NEMRI board, which is the Northern Michigan Regional Entity. And Catholic Human Services Up North Prevention, we hold the prevention contract for Alpena County. So we provide prevention services to community and within the schools. But the prevention dollars statewide for counties are very low. So in order to supplement, add new programming, do a variety of things, we work through NEMRI, which is our funder, where we get some of the state block grant dollars. And to try and supplement the program and the outreach that we do, we apply for liquor tax dollars or PA2 dollars at the local county level. Each county through liquor revenue has a certain fund. It goes for treatment for substance use disorders and then other types of outreach, for individuals in recovery prevention, a variety of sources. So what NEMRI would like us to do is to ensure that at our local county level, our board and community members know that we are applying for this money and what it's about. So Bert sits on the board, and this proposal, and I don't know, I've got copies here of the proposal if you weren't able to print it out. Chet can share with you. But what it is Chet is our local prevention specialist in Alpena County. And beyond the community outreach and some of the things that we're doing, we have a substance-free coalition. Chet works primarily in Alpena Public Schools, and he is at the junior high and the high school providing prevention services. In doing that, what we get for block grant dollars in Alpena County only allows us to provide prevention services probably about 2.5 days a week. So in order to supplement that and be able to provide good servicing in the county, we have gone after these PA2 dollars. Chet is utilized almost on a daily basis at the high school, and they use him in some restorative justice education if they have kids come in with vaping violations, if, kids have some behavioral issues, different kinds of things. Chet provides evidence-based curriculums to these students. And then the other thing that we just initiated this last year is a group called Students Leading Students. And currently, Chet, what do you have? 20 members of the high school?
We had 19, five graduated, so we're down to 15 with the two that's with us. They closed the application process until next fall. But we have seen momentum. We have a lot of interest in doing it. I expect it to excel tremendously next year.
And these kids, it is a leadership group at the high school, and they have picked mental health awareness as the topic that they like to focus on. So they have done mental health awareness bags, sponsored different events at the school. The school has found it so beneficial. They're looking at merging a couple of their leadership groups just into this entity to share the resources in there. So the application that we're applying to NEMRI for is for $40,000 to ensure that we have Chet in the school, working with the students, doing this thing. I mean, if you talk to any educator, the more resources we can have available to the students to provide assistance to them is beneficial threefold. So it's just public knowledge. I don't know if Bert had gotten a copy of the application, but we wanted to share the great things that we're doing at Up North Prevention. And, the ask for this little bit of money out of the PA2, we think, it's threefold in the county. The services we're able to provide and the outreach that Chet does. He's working this summer a little at the Boys and Girls Club, working with the Pivot program, some of our high-risk youth. The school can't say enough great things about Chet, and we really hope that we can continue to have those services offered, at the junior high and high school, and just continue to benefit our schools as much as possible by utilizing some of these liquor tax dollars. So it's just sort of public information, and NEMRI, the funder, just wanted to make sure the county knew how some of those liquor tax dollars that are generated out of revenues within our county are being spent or being asked for. So just sort of a common courtesy. But if you have any questions, get a hold of Chet or myself. And Bert, I think it goes in front of the NEMRI board at the July 2nd meeting, 1st or 2nd.
I have not seen this, so I assume it's going to be for our July meeting.
Yes, yeah, it's going through. They're having most of the PA2s come out at that time for all of the various counties. So, but that's it. Great things happening over at the school and some of the services we're providing. So thank you very much for taking the time and listening. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I don't see Steve today,
Yeah, he's back there
is he? Nope, he's hiding.
in the back.
Steve. We'll move on to Steve with an update for the airport.
The lessons that I've been taking traveling incognito are paying off. Good morning, everybody. And for the month of May, we'll start off with employments. We boarded 779 people in May, which is up significantly from last year. when we had 165. That was due mostly to confusion because SkyWest was canceling a bunch of people's reservations because they knew the airport was going to be closed in June and July. That resulting confusion ended up in a big loss of enplanements for us, but just a personal appeal, if you're thinking about traveling this year, please use the airport. The numbers that we get this year are also going to stand in for the numbers for last year, and that's $1 million per year in AIP grants, so.
And Steve, in regards to that, with so many public, I was gonna ask you, did they get those times moved around a little bit to help with connecting flights?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, the schedule was changed so that now when the planes leave Alpena, they're in time for the morning bank of flights, which is, I believe, at 11 o'clock, and then the afternoon bank of flights, which is at 2 o'clock. So you've got an improved chance of making your connections by flying out of Alpena.
yeah,
What are the two times that they leave Alpena?
Yes, sir.
No, what are the two times?
Off the top of my head, the first flight out should be 11:45 a.m. and the second flight out should be at 13:50.
You said that the bank of flights starts at 11 down in Detroit.
Okay, I crossed those numbers in my mind. The first bank out in Detroit is at Heinen.
Okay.
all right, sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no worries. Next, we bump into fuel sales. You can see we're doing extremely well with fuel sales. We've already pumped 61,417 gallons for SkyWest alone. We retailed another 4,390 gallons of Jet A and 3,657.5 gallons of 100 low lead. We're actually going to be having to refill our 100 low lead bulk tank.
I got a question here. It's going to be the same question I asked you last month. Last month, we went from 15,000 down to 9,900. This month, as far as SkyWest, this month, we went from 9,900 down to 1,300. That's a pretty significant decrease.
Yeah, one of the big reasons for them taking additional fuel when they come to Alpena is bad weather. So if there's like, especially this time of year, pop-up thunderstorms can develop all across the state with no warning. If there's pop-up thunderstorms in between us and Detroit, they'll take more fuel. So the FAA mandates that they have to fly 20 miles around any thunderstorms. So they need the extra fuel for that. The weather has been hot and clear, as you all know, with very little rain. So that has decreased the amount of fuel that they need to take when they're in Alpena.
So, I mean, that's a huge decrease because we've had ever since December, actually, it says, nothing less than 9,100. And this month we're at 1,300. That's huge. So they're fueling up getting all their fuel downstate, Detroit.
Loading up in Detroit so they've got the extra fuel for en route to Alpena in the event that there's pop-up thunderstorms in the way.
And then they don't refuel once they're here.
No, they try to run the aircraft as lightly as they can because the less weight you have on board, of course, the less fuel you burn. So when they come to Alpena, they always have about a half hour before they show up, we'll get what's called a fuel release. And that's them saying how many 100 pounds of fuel they want on each side of the aircraft. So yeah, that's fuel weighs a lot, 7 pounds per gallon. So
Okay,
dropping down to the equipment status, all the airport equipment is in green, it's all available.
any update on your replacements?
We had sealed bids opening last week for the 2 snow plows. 2 snow plows, the cost of snow removal equipment has gone up significantly. The 2 plow trucks came in at a combined bid of like $1.2 million for the 2 trucks. The blower bid is going to be released, if not by the end of this week, then it'll be released next week. You can expect the blower to probably come in at about $1 million.
Can you,
You got that money tucked away in your slush fund?
I don't have a slush fund account, Mr. Osmer.
Can you share those with me, those quotes, when you get back?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, we only received one, that's from M&D companies.
Well, the other,
The blower, we have more than one bid.
isn't M and B the one that bought out Oshkosh?
It is.
Are there other options available?
Not unless we're gonna start our own company.
Or only the one, eh?
Yeah, there's M&B, Oshkosh is out of the business now. You got Wausau, and there's one more manufacturer. But say they're swamped with business. Oshkosh got out of snow removal because they were so heavily demanded for fire trucks that they couldn't handle it all, so they got rid of the snow removal business.
Okay.
So for the activity log, probably the most significant things to report would be on the 8th of May, we had our annual FAA safety certification inspection. That went very well indeed, considering the construction that's been going on for the last couple of years. And on 30 May, we had an auditor from SkyWest was on site, and he did an inspection of the entire fueling operation. And he got quite pleased with the way that we're handling the fueling operation.
Any, do you have any suggestions or anything?
There's always suggestions, but short of putting in an above ground fuel farm, which that's a project for the distant future.
Okay,
The only thing that they trained us on is it's been a number of years since they've actually had somebody go down inside the tanks to do an inspection inside the tanks. But we've already got the waiver put in for that, so we're good for another 3 years. But sometime in the next 3 years, we're gonna have to do a fume evacuation and send an inspector down there with a flashlight and a lighter.
Ground before you know
it.
Thank you.
That's one way to get a good day.
Be above ground before he leaves, huh?
Tanks will be above ground before you know it.
Right. Yeah,
If you have any specific questions about the day-to-day operations?
no, the construction seems to be going pretty well. It seems to be on schedule.
Oh, I do have one question because I got a couple highlighted here. And I don't know if this is you, Steve, or Jesse, but, or maybe even Bert. The pay applications for payment to the county, have we been able to get everything worked out on those?
Yes, I just spoke to everyone. We did a call yesterday. I believe, I don't have it up. I can get you the information, but I signed off on 2 of them yesterday.
Okay.
That came in.
Okay.
The others will be coming in on the 25th. So. Yeah,
I'll
they're-
catch up.
They're on schedule. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. Thanks for the information, Steve.
That's me.
Okay, great. Move on to Wes.
Morning.
Morning.
For the current projects we got going, the Merchants Building improvements, we received possession of the bottle filling station. It is all in and functioning now. The LED lighting came in the end of last week. We're at the pool now, so we have not started on that, and we are waiting for the windows still to, they're ordered, but they haven't came in. The pool shut down. I think Elaine covered that pretty good with what's going on over there. The repairs to bleachers at the fairgrounds, I believe there was 13 or 14 boards that we replaced prior to the Blues Festival that were getting in real shape, so we got them taken care of. Some issues at the MDOT building with the heating system. Control Solutions has been out there a few different times looking at it, and they've gotten back to me, and short of them going in and replacing parts and hoping that it works, which they don't want to do. They're telling me that we need to get an engineer. It's gonna be either replace a rooftop unit to work with the ductwork we have, or possibly reconfigure some of the ductwork in the building. We're looking into engineer right now to see what that could even possibly cost to have somebody do that for us. And the
What
other
kind
one.
of trouble are they having out there with that HVAC? What kind of trouble are they having?
Well, they got one duct that blows cold air constantly. There's been a diffuser put over it to kind of deflect it so it's not blowing straight down, but it's dumping cold air into return air for some reason. It apparently has been like that forever, but the complaints actually started last fall on it, and we've just now got to the point, Control Solutions looking at it, that they don't feel comfortable doing, just parts in and hoping that it works. So they would rather have an engineer take a look, get it right the first time. And then, the 7-Eleven building, there's some issues with a couple controllers, on the air conditioning over there. I've got Control Solutions, taking care of those problems over there also. And then the only other thing that I didn't get on the report was the animal control roof was budgeted to be done this year. I have pulled a permit for that, and we will be starting that. It'll probably be like after the 4th of July when we get back that following week, because we're at the pool pretty much till then, so.
Sure.
Any questions?
I got a couple.
Okay.
So the pool shutdown, Kim mentioned something about potentially moving that because of, June, I guess, probably not. I think in the past, what we've been told is it's a good time because it's nicer outside so people can go to the lake or whatever. I would think that she would know better than anybody, the usage. And would that be a problem going to switching?
I would like to shoot for late May, just because spring cleanup is happening the early part of the month,
Okay.
but.
The only reason I'm saying that is based on what she just told us is, a loss of revenue, and we need all the revenue that we can get.
And I can tell you, years ago, we used to do it in August, right before school started back up, and because temperatures the way they were and trying to work in there when it's 80, 90 degrees out, that's why we had moved it up to June. And when we did that, it was for the end of the school year, when school got out. When school got out for the year, we started the following Monday is what we typically did. But I don't think the school's involved with the
No,
pool as much anymore as they were back
other
then.
than their swim team.
But the guys working over there, the way it's been so far this week, they would probably like it. A month earlier, you know what I mean? So.
And then the other question I have is, I know there was a work ticket put in for the boards at the track at the fairgrounds. Is there a plan to then change those?
Yeah, before the fair, we'll get them done.
Okay.
And I think Robin, I think was gonna check with Sheriff to see if he could provide trustees to maybe do some painting over there, paint those boards.
I can elaborate on that. I did speak with Sheriff Smith. Unfortunately, with the new jail reform, people are getting let out, out on bond more that are nonviolent offenders, not sex offenders, things like that nature. So the inmates that are being housed are not necessarily appropriate to have out there. You'd have to have quite a few deputies. But he said when we're ready to do that, he should have, maybe 3 or 4 that he could come out, and he does have a deputy available to do that project. But I also told him to let me know, and I could probably get some volunteers too, because we could probably just hang it out in a day or 2.
A lot of fun.
I'm a super painter. Give me a Red Bull.
Well, I'm wondering, because I know that we've talked, the sheriff has mentioned that community service, people would have to do community service. That could be something else that could be think that we could probably work on too.
And I can follow up on that.
We have had trouble with some community service in the past, but I'd be open to them paying.
What was the trouble?
Well, they would get in the shop and one individual was stealing copper parts and hiding them out on the infield and somebody else was coming and picking them up in the evening and there's just been.
That just sounds like another charge to go back to.
So,
Hey, did you get your new mower yet?
no. We did not. We were waiting on the cab mounts and the hard bagger for the back. I think any day now we should be hearing from them. That was a few weeks ago that I spoke with them and checked on where they were at with it.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Wes. So, on to John with the Northern Lights Arena recycling bins.
Who put this on there? The only thing, I kind of mentioned it when we were at our, I think, the last full board. And I haven't had the opportunity to follow up anymore with Jeremy, but probably this was on here just to make everyone aware, which I kind of did at the full board, that they moved all those recycling bins over to Northern Lights Arena. And then the discussion that I had with Jeremy the last time I talked to him was a concern with moving those around. And I know out in Osanique, the recycling bins out there were on gravel, but they were actually on pavement and back in Neiman, weren't they? My only concern was with discussion with Jeremy was, well, I guess there's a couple discussions really. One is how that's going to affect the pavement area where they're at the edge of the parking lot. And then two, the obvious one is, and I've already brought this up to the recycling board, is the additional trash, junk or whatever that isn't recyclable being left there for the Northern Lights Arena people to then be responsible for cleaning them. So I'm going to get back with, I made a note that I got to call Jeremy after the meeting today and I'll get with him to get more information on this and then the other stuff that I needed to get with him on as well.
Okay. And hopefully when we get the new recycling center built, hopefully they can be distributed again. I think people are gonna be much more apt to use it if they're a lot closer.
Yeah, I agree. And I know one of the, and probably with a lot of people, I brought it up at the board, the recycling committee, that, I've loaded up my car with recyclables. And I've done this a few times where I've got my car all loaded up. I go down to the recycle center in Osanique, only to find every single one of the two dumpsters out there chock full of stuff. Then to come into town, and this was when it was at Neiman's, to find all three dumpsters at Neiman's on the same day chock full. And I know there was vehicle issues and stuff like that, but what I relayed to the board was that, some people are just going to say the heck with it, and then that's all just going to go in the garbage.
Oh, yeah.
So.
John, I was just out there yesterday and it was pretty clean around and there was plenty of capacity there for cardboard and whatever.
Okay, good to know. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, thanks for the update. Moving on to Jesse.
What about the recycling reports? Want to receive and file that?
Yeah, I apologize. I did not download it. I guess we look for a motion to
Make a motion to receive and file that report.
All right. Got a motion?
Support.
Okay, any discussion with any of these? Any questions from anybody? You guys have a chance to take a look at everything?
Yep.
Okay. Got a motion and support. We can take a roll call vote on that.
No, just
So we'll take a vote. All in favor of accepting the reports as listed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same? All right, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to Jesse, County Administrator.
So, just a couple of updates. One is on the Boys and Girls Club meeting. So, as the board recalls, last year we had agreed, well, let me go back. In 2011, the county deeded the property where the old Boys and Girls Club sat to the Boys and Girls Club with a reversion clause stating that in the event the property was to be used for any other purpose than serving the youth of the county, that property was to revert back to the county. Obviously, the Boys and Girls Club opened a new facility. They came to us last year asking for us to turn the deed over to them in full. At that time, we had agreed that what we would do instead was allow them to put it on the market, and the sale of which 25% of that profit would come back to the county, 75% to the Boys and Girls Club. I recently, at the beginning of this month, had reached out to Mr. Summers to find out the status because we hadn't seen it hit the market yet. And he shared that no official communication from the county had been conveyed to them other than what was shared in the newspaper. They never received an actual written letter stating what we'd agreed to do.
That'd be an Easter egg.
It was an Easter egg. And so in that same communication with Mr. Summers, he conveyed that they felt there might be a need for gym space for local youth. That for right now it's being used as storage, and that the board has also discussed whether or not they want to sell it or keep it for a while. I guess we can obviously get that official communication out, but I believe that when the board originally decided to generously give them 75% of the profit while we keep 25%, when the original actually had it reverting 100% back to us, that we expected it to hit the market within a reasonable amount of time. Now they're discussing the possibility of keeping it for who knows how long. So I would ask the board to possibly consider a stepping scale where maybe it's like 15% every 3 to 6 months, more comes back to the county, so that the longer they're sitting on that property, not using it, you know, the more the county would get, because originally it was supposed to be 100%. And again, when we agreed to do the 25-75, I believe we agreed it would go on the market somewhat soon. Additionally, because it's only being used for storage right now and not used to serve the youth of Alpena, it could possibly even be a breach of contract. So, which would revert entirely back to us at this point. So that's something that we should communicate to them as well. But just wanted the board to maybe consider these options and find out what you'd like me to do.
I think maybe you could put together a letter to send them and run it by us, and we can approve it or get a motion that the full board.
Do that.
Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
I agree. I think, I get it if they didn't realize that they had the ability to move forward with the sale, but I don't think the intent should be to just sit on it.
I would just remind you that he did say they were debating on whether to sell it or keep it. So they obviously knew they had the opportunity to sell it. Whether or not they received official communication might be an error on our part, but nonetheless, the board action was passed and it's public record. So I guess I would ask, would you like me to do a couple of different versions of the letter for consideration, one with maybe like a 15% at every 3 months it sits or 6 months it sits, just for consideration?
Yeah, give us a couple options. We can pass it on to them and have a discussion.
Okay, I'll have those ready for next week.
Okay.
The other item that we had was the airport lots. This was discussed last Finance Ways and Means meeting. We did do the 90-day extension with Mr. Jennings, who signed off on that. So there was the possibility, we were looking at a possible grant from the EDA. On further conversations, it seems like that's going to be a difficult grant to obtain for this particular piece of property. So just wanted to share that. But we did have some notes from the attorney on that contract. And there were 3 items specifically that I just wanted the board to give clarification on as well before we put it back before the full board. The first was on the creation of access drives. As it is right now, it says that the buyer will consult with the Michigan Department of Transportation. The attorney recommended that we also include the Alpena County Road Commission, Wilson Township, and obviously the County of Alpena would have to sign off on that. So that wouldn't just be the state and the buyer. Those other entities would have a say. The second item was the debate on whether or not the buyer, let's see, it'd be Part E, which read that the buyer shall be entitled to receive from seller the reasonable value of infrastructure improvements made by buyer. The attorney felt that may open us up for possible litigation in the future. The The alternative would be switching out reasonable value to actual cost. So that's up for the board's consideration as well. And the final item is the seller shall reimburse buyer for the cost of such installations. And that's basically the utilities. The attorney recommended that that part be struck. You shouldn't be liable for the utilities once they start being put in. If the deal does fall through, there's adequate amount of time beforehand and numerous other parts of the contract that would allow him to end that prior to the utilities being put in. So we shouldn't be liable for that cost.
So where do we go from here with that?
I mean, those are the three options. You can certainly discuss and give a recommendation to the full board. Or just basically making it known, you know, it pass back to full board or full board, I guess, without action being taken necessarily at this time. Or you can piecemeal if there's one item that you'd like to address and leave the rest for full board to consider.
Can you,
But I would like to get something back to Mr. Jennings because he has been waiting, you know, patiently, so.
Can bring it up in the next full board meeting and then we'll make a decision on it. That'd probably be the way to go.
have you sent those results from attorney to everybody?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can receive.
Okay.
Well, pinpoint or identify the specific, the three things that the attorney recommended.
Okay.
The difference between the two, what the potential could be if, because you mentioned the one could lead to a lawsuit.
Correct. Okay. I'll highlight those and give those out to the full board. All I have.
All right. So we'll look for that information. Figure out what he gets, really look at, flip over and we'll make a decision Tuesday and get that in motion. Very good.
Excuse me, please have to go to somebody.
If you would, please just give them to Kim here. Thank you. Right. So we will move on to the New County Library discussion. John, do you think we should move the public comment up first for anything not related to the library, just in case there's?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I would just press on because I would say the majority of these people are probably here for the library stuff.
Okay. All right. So I guess we have the time here slated for the discussion. Is there some stuff that we want to go over as?
Well, I would think, because I see Jessica is here, so I know that, you know, Jessica, you had asked for a list of questions and I sent Jesse the questions that I had. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to review that.
I'm not sure what the format is here, so please let me know. I'm Joe Garber. I'm the chairman of the Library Board of Trustees. I know end of last week, there was a packet of information provided to Mr. Parker regarding questions and some other materials that we felt that would be helpful for the commissioners. So I think those are the questions maybe you're talking about.
Well, I was asked, I think, and I don't know if it was you, Jessica, someone had asked me for a list of questions.
Sure, perfect attachment. So questions.
So yes, we received those questions and submitted answers to those ahead of time, along with some other material, including our current collection development policy, request for reconsideration of library material form, and some information from the Library of Michigan regarding book material challenges, and then some letters from various library, that would, I guess, for lack of a better term, professionals for your review. At this point, what I can do is give you an update on a couple things and where we're at as a board in this process. We are We understand, we realize that our collection development policy has been in place for, let me go back 2 steps. I've been on this board since 2003. And was recently reappointed in December of 2023. Last 18 months have been probably the most active we've seen in the library in the 20 odd years that I've been at the library. It's been mentioned off and on in various circles that the library board is not responsive, not listening. I don't believe that to be true. We take comments very seriously. We do a lot of research. I think in the last 3 weeks, I've taken at least 5, maybe 6 meetings with different patrons, staff, county commissioners. Mr. Francisco and Mr. Konashevsky were kind enough to spend about an hour and a half with me on Monday. Listen to my story about the library. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for doing that. We are working through a process to redevelop our our collection development policy. It hasn't been reviewed and it's been reviewed, but there was no need to change it as there were real challenges or real need to change it in the past. We recognize that needs to happen and bring that policy up to more current standards. We are diligently working to do that. Deborah, the library director, has outlined a process that we discussed at our meeting last month, a timeline and a process of how we're doing that. She's meeting with each trustee individually, talk about their collection policy. We met with people, certain citizens to talk about that. We plan on having a public comment, open meeting when we get ready to have a draft for that put forward. So we are moving forward with that. Obviously, it's not as fast as maybe some people think. There are a lot of areas to navigate through this. Alpena has approximately 29,000 people in it. If we're trying to develop a policy that meets the needs for as many people as we can in the policy, you're not going to please everybody with a policy, but you have to write a policy that tries to take into consideration as many issues that could develop. We're working through that right now. You may or may not know that the board is all volunteers, other than maybe one person. Everybody else on the library board does have a day job, just like you do. So we are diligently working through this process. And again, we've provided some information. If there are questions, I will do my best. Some of the things that we are looking at doing within this reconsideration policy that's been suggested, we would most likely seek legal advice on whether or not what the pratts and pitfalls may be if we put those in our policy and what exposure that could put on the library. I feel as a trustee, and I think the majority of the trustees believe that we need to do that to complete our fiduciary duty and make sure that we're not putting the library in jeopardy. I know it's been discussed. It's common knowledge. We have a millage coming due in August. Our millage expired at the end of December of 2023. We are in our last year of this millage. The millage does not pass in August, the library closes. There's not enough money. The major part of our funding comes from the millage. That millage doesn't pass, the library closes. I know we are focused, certain groups are focused on certain books, 13 books, whatever they may be. I do want to mention the library is more than books. We have programs, we bring authors to the area. Talking with Deborah this morning, we kicked off our summer kids reading program Saturday. The library was packed with kids and families. Packed with kids and families. Library closes, those services are done. Would also stress that the library did go through a very extensive remodeling a few years ago in the midst of COVID. There is a bond issue that was floated and issued for to pay for those renovations. Just because the millage doesn't pass in August does not mean that that bond goes away. There is a separate millage that goes to make that bond payment, but it does have an expiry date before the bond is paid off. There are also some issues if the library were to close. What happens to that building? Currently, the building is technically owned by the Alpena County Building Authority. I believe there are deed restrictions when that property was originally donated for the library, but if it ceases to become a library, it reverts back, I think, to the city of Alpena, but I have to research those. Just stating facts, I'm not, it's totally up to the voters. I understand that. But stop this group and should understand just the raw finances of the library. Again, the single most funding source is the millage. Second is penal fines from district court. And third is state aid from the state of Michigan. Those are the three top funding sources for the library. Our millage that's being proposed in August is essentially a renewal of the existing millage, which is 0.74, and some change. Originally started at 0.75 10 years ago, but as we all know, Headley rollbacks took that back. That 0.75, that library's been operating on that 0.75 mils for over 25 years. Over 25 years, we've operated within that millage for operating. Now, over the time, there have been separate, shorter term, smaller millages to fund specific types of needs. I think for the size of our library, for the amount of money we have to work with, we have an excellent library, which is, again, more than books, but we see the need to update our collection policy. We're working diligently to do that. If there's any other trustees, we do have 4 trustees in attendance. All but one of our trustees are in attendance. If any of them would like to say anything, then certainly yield to them.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
I've known you for a long time
Yes.
and I respect you. I looked at some of the graphics and some of the wording of the material, and in my opinion, it's completely unacceptable in the library and even in the adult section. You know, I mean, our Christian values in this country have gone in the toilet. So, you know, we're one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all, and we should try to be like that. I mean, this stuff that I saw when I was 10 years old, if I was able to do that, I would have been mortified. So that's where I'm at with the library. And I understand, you know, there's many liberal and the woke society we have today is not acceptable in my opinion. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I was just going to comment the same thing that Bill just mentioned. Some of the information that I, you know, and one of the things that I've seen out posted on the internet is, you know, we need to go read those books. I didn't read the books cover to cover, but I read through the material that I got. And the one particular book that is perfectly normal, I guess my question is, who decides the age range on this? Because like Bill just said, some of that stuff that's age range, and if this is for 11-year-olds to whatever, 18-year-olds, to me, this isn't, in my mind, it's not acceptable. If my kids came home with one of these books, it'd be gone. But there's a couple of things that I want to mention here. In the book that is, it's perfectly normal, it talks about the internet's a great way to research fantasies and kinks on the internet. And then a little further down, it says online is chock full of, you can find chock full of pornography. So my question is, if this is acceptable in the kids section and a kid, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 13 years old, decides to go downstairs and go over to the computer, would it be acceptable for him to research kinks and fantasies on the library computers?
My understanding is no, we have filtering on our internet.
But why wouldn't that be acceptable? Because that book in the kids section,
Can I finish?
sure, go ahead.
Thank you. The internet filtering is required by law. There's a specific law that talks about internet filtering for us to get grants and be able to offer those services from the federal government. I'm not aware of any laws that say that these books cannot be put in a library. To answer the question regarding what ages, that's typically decided by the publisher and the author, who's what target he is trying to reach. That's my understanding.
So if we have laws that require filtering, how does that make sense that it's okay? So we're basically advocating for kids that read those books to go out on the internet, research kinks and fantasies, and look up pornography, but yet the same computers that are in the library, it would not be acceptable for them to go research those kinks and fantasies. Does that make sense?
I didn't make the law.
I know, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying common
There's not a law that I'm aware of.
common sense tells me that if you have this stuff for, and again, the library is supposed to be a resource to go do research. If you were advocating for kids to go look up their fantasies and kinks on the internet, and we've got computers in the library, that would make sense to me that it should be acceptable. The other thing, one of the other things, and I know these books, the age range, you know, and we'll say that it's these books are used for education. There's a lot of books that I could say that, you know, looking at this stuff, to me, there's a part of it that I could see about education, but there's a lot of stuff in there, like Bill just said, that to me is not acceptable. And again, I guess my biggest concern, and I got another one here. To me, the next thing that I was going to mention too was in one of those books, and I think it's still perfectly normal, there's yes and no and shades of gray. How is shades of gray acceptable? I've always grown up with, you know, it's either yes or no. You don't shades of gray. So now I decided it's kind of like we get into, to me, when I read that, I'm like, are we referring to pedophiles? So if a pedophile says, the kid says yes or no, there's a lot of stuff in there that I have take exception to. I guess the reason the majority of these people are here is because they've gone to the library board. And again, I don't know, I have not gone to all these meetings where they've come and asked to relocate some of those books. To me, if you're relocating the books, and you can say it's censorship, but the books are still available. I don't think the books should be available to me. If I don't know what I would have done if I was 11 years old reading this stuff. I would have been so confused at that time. Even reading it as an adult, some of that stuff I didn't even know about. But like I said, I think the majority of these people here are here because they've gone to the library board and just have asked to not remove and censor the books, take them out of the library. I agree that this material is not the kind of material that we want to provide to our children. If parents are out there that want to provide that, that's their prerogative. But I think the majority of the people don't agree with that. And again, I'll go back to it doesn't make sense to me that we have these books that are, if you will, educational, and then that child were to go over to that computer and look that same stuff up on the internet, there's a bill in that.
I'm just telling you that.
And that's fine. I get it. I get it.
Now, can we come up with maybe a common sense approach? That's what I'd like to do.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But I'm not going to be perfectly honest, if you're going to hold over the millage and you're not, you don't get it done by August.
Did I say anything about holding up for the millage?
I'm talking about everybody. Okay, so that's my.
Let me ask you, or let me put this on.
I'm just presenting the library position, what we're trying to do to solve it.
But you just said something about.
Again, there's opinions on books. We can probably show just as many opinions supporting That's the, you know, this is my problem. I try to listen to all sides of this, and this is the response that we get. We're trying to do this the best we can and still try to service all of the people that use the library. Now, I go back again to the fact that we started our program, and if this was, and the library was full of kids and full of parents, I am open, the board is open to discuss openly with open dialogue and listen to all points of view and try to come up with a policy that can best suit everybody, or as best as possible, people that use the library in Alpena County. We all have opinions on the books. I try to leave those, I try to look at all sides of it. I think the bulk of the board does that, try to do what's best for everybody that uses the library.
When,
I'll leave it at that.
I just have another question for you. When were these issues? Because I know it probably goes back easily 6 months, maybe even longer than that, a year or whatever. But when the individuals have brought these issues to the board, what has been the process to, because I know you have a review process, and what has come back, what the information that has been relayed back to me is that, and again, I don't know how this review process works, but books supposedly were reviewed and they were deemed good books for the library, whatever, and then they've moved on. So if, and again, I don't know any of these people in here that are from the, probably have issues with the books, but what has been the process? Because I've heard that this process, people have brought an appeal process to the library board, and what has happened with those appeals.
We have heard one appeal on one book.
Okay.
Boys Aren't Blue. That's the only appeal that I'm aware of that came through, went through our whole process. There's outlines in the collection development policy that was given last week for the board to consider. This is the policy that's being revised. We found that in certain areas, it was vague on timeframes and on what the process would be. We've done our best to be fair about the process and to listen to an appeal. We've only had one appeal come all the way to the board. If somebody has to take this all the way to the board.
So when an appeal is made, then that goes to the full library board?
Final step in the process is the full board. There are interim steps, one being it's reviewed by the director. And then if the person or group that challenges or asks the book for reconsideration doesn't like that response, there's another committee that contains 2 board members and staff members from the library. They review the request, and this last appeal process is to the board. And then once that it goes to the board, based on the current policy, that decision is final at this point. I don't know who else you could appeal to. Obviously, they're appealing to the county commissioners. At this point, they didn't like our board decision.
What was the decision from the board?
Pardon?
On that appeal, what was the decision?
To leave the book where it was at in the library.
Okay.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure, you're free to speak.
I'm Deborah Greenacre. I'm the library director. I've been consulting with some of our library co-op director, our library law consultant at the Library of Michigan, and they would be happy to put up to set up an educational workshop for the county commissioners so that you can learn more about the ins and outs of libraries and the challenges that we have with book challenges. So I would gladly set that up if that's what you guys would like to do. And I would highly recommend it.
I would like that.
Yeah, we certainly would not be opposed to that.
Okay.
I think it gives you whether you agree or disagree, it gives you some understanding on how we're trying to navigate these issues. Wish it was as black and white as some would like, but it's a lot of things for us to consider.
Anybody else? Brenda, you have a question?
I do. I'd just like to say a few things. You know, us as commissioners, we put you on that board to trust your judgment. I believe you're not fulfilling your job. From what I hear, when people do come to your meetings, attend them, they have questions that they want to ask, and they are not allowed to ask questions, or you will not answer questions. A lot of times it's hard to answer questions that you feel are irrelevant to the library, but it's not to the people that are asking. I feel that the books that you have on that shelf should not be there. We have a sex shop here in Alpena. They have to be 18 years old to enter that building. From what I hear at the library, children can just walk in, get the book, check it out, no problem. Parents not knowing the type of book that they are checking out. And as far as using a computer, you more or less said at home, they can get on a computer and check out whatever they want. That's up to the parents to see what their children are looking at on the computer. But when they go to the library, the computer's there. If, the way I see it, if you are letting children check out these books, then you are letting children use your computer to look up anything they want to know about. I do not believe those books belong there. Maybe, and I don't know. You had the books behind the counter. A parent comes in with the child, and the child wants to see that book. It should be up to the parent to either sign that they're checking it out, or no, they are not checking it out. I don't feel as though you have the right to put these books out there. I don't feel like you're doing your job, and I don't feel like you're listening to the people. That's just my perspective.
I disagree with that opinion, but you certainly have the right to that opinion. I may also suggest coming to our board meeting. It's 5 o'clock this evening at the library. One of the reasons that we've been asking, if you have questions, we ask that they be sent to the director so we can properly research and answer those questions. Because 9 times out of 10, if we get asked those questions, we're going to just take them under advisement anyways, because we want to make sure we're providing correct answers to the public.
Did you change your board meetings? Because I thought they were always at 4.
For the months, last month, we approved to change the meetings for June, July, and August to 5 o'clock. It's in our minutes, which are posted. Notice of those meetings. It's to accommodate a schedule of one of our trustees. One of the reasons why.
I do have one other question about the policies. Someone had asked me about a policy about, and I said I went in there, there wasn't an issue for me, but does the library have a policy where an adult can't go into the children's section without a child?
The teen room.
Yeah.
There's a room upstairs.
That's not the case. The teen room, the only policy we have is that everyone is welcome anywhere in the library. And I know I've explained this to you in the past, John. But we do ask that adults not hang out in the teen room, like plop down and read a book if they're not with their child. That's all that we ask. That room is supposed to be a safe space for the teenagers to hang out and feel comfortable and not feel like they're being, held under a microscope. We've seen increased usage of our teen room since we've opened, and it's been fantastic. So we just want to make sure that, we don't have, people just hanging out. I mean, we had a problem with that before before the library was renovated. We did have adults sleeping out in the children and teen area, and that doesn't make for a safe space.
Well, I know, because I've said that I've gone into Jesse and I went in there.
No, parents come in and look for books for their kids without their children all the time, and that's.
Well, the reason I asked that was I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
It's
no.
coming from you guys, not coming from
Yeah,
me.
for sure. I get that. Yep, and it's the only place no one's allowed in the library or the staff areas.
So in here, it does say that, we asked the question, who decides the age range? And it says publishers provide age appropriate standards for their titles. I mean, I get that they have a suggestion or an age appropriate standard. But at the end of the day, is it the board that decides what books come in and where they're placed?
No, the board establishes the collection development policy and staff carries out that policy. We as a board, I've never, the board have been asked to approve what books we purchase as a board. We approve the policy that outlines how the collection be developed.
So who decides what books are purchased?
We have we have department heads and we have the library director and assistant director that review. I think we gave you some resources in here that are looked at, letting us know when books come out and they're reviewed periodically to decide what books may be appropriate, what we would need in our collection. Obviously, we can't buy every book because we have limited on space and funding, but I think we've talked about here vendor lists and different, there's some different websites that we look at. Just let me know.
Okay, I was just curious because books that are in question are not in some surrounding community libraries. And it sounds like their board, through the staff chooses what books they do purchase every year and where they're placed.
So one of the interesting things, if I can just,
Certainly.
I would start first, I'm gonna give it back to you. In response to that, if patrons don't check out books, they get weeded out on a regular basis. And so it's really a trial and error. Again, we're representing 23,000 people in this community, trying to do the best job that we can to uphold our rights under the First Amendment. And that's part of what we're talking about here is the First Amendment, the right of press. And as somebody who was an educator for 30 years working in public schools, there's really kind of a lot of times people look at books in the public schools and books
Would you step up to the podium, please?
separately, or they should be looked at separately,
Ma'am,
not together.
would you step up to the podium so we can hear you?
No, I don't want to.
No, but I want to just make sure that you understand that we take everything seriously that's happened here. And as someone who works with public schools, I understand kind of how that library operates and the fact that parents can have more of an impact on what is brought into that library. Whereas a county library, we're held under a kind of a different microscope. Essentially, the belief is that the First Amendment exists and that we allow parents to make the choice about what books their children can take out or not take out. It's kind of the parent's responsibility. You can't come to the county library and check out books unless you have a card that's authorized by a parent, right? In a public school, all kids are there. They can go into that library and take out whatever book they want without parent permission. So it's a different standard for public schools than it is for county libraries. We service 29,000 people in the whole community. We have to have a vast majority of diversity of books. And if people don't check those out, obviously naturally go away as well.
Sure.
So I don't know if that helped a little bit and gave you a little different perspective. But I just want you to know, we've done our best to seek legal counsel, to listen to people, to make tough decisions. And we're really not the only library going through this. I mean, it's the country right now. And we're trying to do the best that we can. And as we've said, come to our meetings, listen to both sides. I mean, we hear it all over the place. I go to the grocery store and people are grabbing me from both sides of this argument. And, we're volunteers doing the best that we can to navigate, and we're seeking advice from our professionals and from lawyers to make sure that we have the books that are properly, should be there and categorized where they should be.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'd like to know, why did you feel that those books were appropriate?
Here's what I can tell you. I don't know if those books are appropriate or not, but every single set.
Excuse me, Did you not say that it was up to the library board to decide which board?
No, because what happens is all books, all professions have organizations that they rely on, whether it's medicine or education or libraries. And essentially those come up through publishers that are vetted by the American Library Association and the Michigan Library Association. Those all come up that way and they're vetted. And then they're cataloged. It's not like our librarians go out and just pick random books from the streets. They've come up kind of a whole like scale of different experts who have read these and categorized them. And they suggest them.
So you didn't look at these books when you decided to put them out? You just figured, oh, they're a top book, so we'll get those and put those in the library.
Well, not necessarily.
Somebody had to make a decision.
So,
to
I mean, it came up.
in the, like, who made that decision? Somebody had to have made that decision.
Sure, I mean,
Just not gonna pop up in the library.
library. Yeah, library professionals, essentially. Library professionals.
And who was that?
Our staff.
So you did make the decision to get those books and put them on display.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, it's, yeah.
And you thought they were appropriate to do so.
I have not read every book in the library. I can't speak for all those books.
Well, we're only talking about a few.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that.
Especially these few here.
Right. So your board decided that these books were appropriate to,
Our collection development policy did.
so it's still your board.
We operate under policy.
There isn't, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
Sure. So I am a library professional. I have a
Who are
master's.
these people, please?
What about these?
What makes them professional? I have no idea.
If you would just state your name, please. Everybody will have a chance to comment, if you would, please.
Travis, we talked about this, you know, and.
Sure. And we're gonna keep it civil, certainly.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lauren.
We would like to hear what you have to say.
Just state your name, please, so we know.
Lauren Mantlo. And why am I professional? Because I got a graduate degree in library and information science. I'm a trustee on the board of directors here, and I'm also a library director at the community college. Now, when I was appointed to this board, I was very clear on my feelings about the collection and where I stand as a library professional. So when you guys appointed me, you knew this. What I'm doing is upholding the Constitution and the First Amendment. So what we have to do as trustees responsible for the library is make sure that we're following the law. So it doesn't matter that or you don't like these books. There are going to be books that offend everyone. And a good library is going to have books that offend everyone. That's the whole point. The whole point of being a library professional is being neutral and offering all sides of the spectrum, whatever you want, we'll get for you. Because that's what we do. We're a pillar of democracy. Because we provide the vote in 2000. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I said there are books that are offensive for anybody. I mean, I can talk about legal cases. I can go back to Evans versus Selma Union High School. This is a case from 1924. This California State Supreme Court held that the King James Version of the Bible was not a publication of sectarian, partisan, or denominational character, that a state statute required a public high school library to exclude from its collections. The fact that the King James Version is commonly used by Protestant churches and not by Catholics does not make its character sectarian. The court stated, the mere act of purchasing a book to be added to the school library does not carry with it any implication of the adoption of the theory or dogma contained therein, or any approval of the book itself, except as a work of literature. Rosenberg versus the Board of Education of the City of New York, 1949. After considering the charge that Oliver Twist and The Merchant of Venice are objectionable because they tend to engender hatred of the Jew as a person, as a race. The Supreme Court, Kings County, New York, decided that these two works cannot be banned from the New York City schools, libraries, or classrooms, declaring that the Board of Education acted in good faith, without malice or prejudice, and in the best interest of the school system entrusted to their care and control, and therefore that no substantial reason exists which compels the suppression of the two books under consideration. Todd versus Rochester Community Schools, 1972.
In deciding that Slaughterhouse-Five cannot be banned from the libraries and classrooms of the Michigan schools, the Court of Appeals of Michigan declared Vonnegut's literary dwellings on war, religion, death, Christ, God, government, politics, and any other subject should be as welcome in the public schools of this state as those of Machiavelli, Chaucer, Shakespeare, Melville, Lenin, Joseph McCarthy, or Walt Disney. The students of Michigan are free to make Slaughterhouse-Five what they will. I can keep going. There are so many cases. This has gone on over and over again. We, as a country, have decided that students, that young people have First Amendment rights. So my job is to uphold the Constitution, which is what I'm doing as a library trustee.
And I think that I guess I don't want to speak for everyone. My opinion is that, I agree, the books should be available. But I think my problem and a lot of other people's problem is who they're available to and how accessible that they are. I also have in front of me a handful of Supreme Court cases of much more recent than 1924.
Well, I have more too. I mean, I can keep going.
And that's fine. I'm just saying there's stuff here.
Here's the thing.
To, a lot of, protecting children and minors. And, we can go back and forth all day. And, at the end of the day, a lot of people do receive a paycheck at the library. And the library is an extremely valuable tool for our community without any shadow of a doubt. Everybody is here because they feel that way. And the problem is, getting buy-in from these 28,000 people to allow the library to continue. Myself and the others were not trying to hold this situation over someone's head. We're not going to say we're closing the library and you're never going to get this millage. Everybody wants this millage to pass. We need the library, but I feel like we are, as a group, making it really hard to sell this millage, especially with the circumstances at hand. What I would suggest, and it's just my opinion, speaking from me, not this group. If I was wearing your shoes or someone who did receive a paycheck from the library, I would say, you know what, let's pull these until we can figure this out, in the very near future. Somehow we've got to come to a agreement, and time is certainly of an essence with these. The library is full of books of history, good, bad, in regards to slaves, all kinds of different things. But this is a hot topic all over the world. And right now, our community has its feet to the fire, trying to keep this at bay, if you will. And, I have a list here of meetings stating from December 18th, January 9th, January 16th, February 14th, February 21st, on pretty lengthily in regards to the omission of the Boys Are Blue. A lot of the people that are here today are feeling like their concerns are falling on deaf ears. And, you guys have explained that they're not, but actions sometimes speak a lot louder than words. And it took a long time to get any sort of decision. And the decision is that the book stays. So that is a struggle for the people that are going to choose the library's fate, unfortunately.
And this is why we're going back to the legal aspect. If we move these books, if we get rid of these books, we open ourselves up to a lawsuit.
Well, I disagree because they're not in surrounding communities. And unfortunately, they're not under fire with their millage coming.
And I would just say, go a step further. I don't think anybody said you need to remove the books completely. We're not saying remove the books. I'm not saying anything about that. I think the majority of the people here, and ultimately the people that are going to vote for this millage, I won't say about that. The majority of these people right here today are the ones that have brought the complaints to at least us, that they're just asking, at least I know one or two of them have talked to me, that they're not saying remove the books completely. They're just saying relocate the books. And you can call that censorship, but the book is still available if someone chose. If you go into the library and you go type on the computer and say, I need this book, and it says it's at the front desk, that person can still go over to the front desk and pick it up. So to me, it doesn't matter whether it's on the bottom shelf of the kids section or behind the desk at the, where you check out the books, the book is still there and it's still available.
It's still censorship and it's still.
Okay, so let me, and I'll ask you, go ahead, go, you finish and then I'm going to say something.
It still opens you up to lawsuit. We have circulation records on these materials. People are checking them out. They're wanted. If you were to censor it at that point, then they would say that that's an access issue and you're going to open yourself up to a lawsuit.
Okay, so I'll go back to the same question that I asked Joe. So if we're allowing the kids to go on this book, and I told you the research kinks and fantasies, and the best place to do it, the best place to find pornography is the internet. And that's in the book. And I'm a kid researcher and I go in there and this is supposed to be educational. I go read this. Why can't I go back down to the computer? And you can say there's filters.
Federal court.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
okay.
just the way that.
Because someone had enough common sense to say, this is not appropriate for kids, young kids to go out there and research pornography.
You should read the book in its entirety as well.
I did read a book. I don't need to read the whole book to get a.
Do. There's.
No, I don't. No, I don't. If I put those pictures up here for the group, I think people would be offended and, yeah.
You're forgetting about the large portion of people that live in this community that are checking these books out, that want them, that have spoken up at our meetings, that they want us to keep these materials.
Well,
So
like I said, you guys have to make a
Yes.
decision.
pick and choose, there's gonna be, like I said, there's gonna be something that offends everybody.
Don, may,
As a librarian, I buy things I don't care for, right? Because it's not about my political beliefs. It's about providing for everyone in the community. It's not about how I feel politically.
ma'am,
Yes.
excuse me, but the newspaper wouldn't print the article in the paper because it was inappropriate for the newspaper. Now, what does that tell you?
And there are different laws regulating newspapers and airwaves.
Right? So,
Yeah, we
I mean,
go by
if
what's-
the newspaper's not going to publish it, it shouldn't be in the library. Period. There's no getting around that.
You really seem.
I certainly don't want to sell you short, and I don't want the meeting to get out of hand. Is there anybody else that would like to speak before we do move into public comment? Go ahead, sir. If you would please state your name.
So, here we go.
Good morning. First of all, thanks for taking the time. I think this is actually a great.
Answer their questions. They've been on here for 6 months, I'm done.
Sir.
So coming back to the point at hand. First of all, this is a good explanation of our government at work is right here. We have issues, we have taken them, we've discussed, we've heard, now it's coming to the next level. I think this is, first of all, let's just pause and say, you know what, this is good. What we're doing here is good. We're having a discussion. Absolutely. Yeah, my apologies. I'm Dustin Budd. I'm also one of the trustees in the library. I've been on the, so this is not an easy subject. This same discussion is happening throughout townships, counties, cities, states, all across this nation. We can read about it. We can see it. Multiple discussions are occurring about this very issue, and it comes down to the question of what is and is not appropriate for children to have access to. That's really what boil it all down, that's the simple question. There's also a recognition that every community is different. This is a recognition that was referenced by Supreme Court Justice Berger when he decided on the Miller case, which set obscenity, what is or is not obscenity. And I will remind everybody, Supreme Court agreed with California that when they charged the gentleman who was charged with obscenity, that it was obscenity. But we use those, and now we have taken that case and we've kind of twisted things a little bit, and it's confusing. And we're at this point now where I'm sure all of these issues will one day make their way up to the Supreme Court, and there will be a better decision, I hope. And if not, then the legislators will do their job and they'll create a law that says explicitly what's going to happen. That's how our government works. This is good. But right now, we're having a discussion, and this is good that we're having a discussion, and we all come from different viewpoints. On the board, you, as the commissioners, selected different people, and there's a difference of opinion, and that's good. We need to have a diversity of thought, but we also need to be able to explain and logically approach the issues and say, why is this an issue? And what is a logical conclusion? What is a reasonable solution? What is a moral solution? So first of all, I want to say to Joe has been doing a great job of trying to weed through this issue. Again, this is you go around the community, you're gonna hear different opinions. And you will not be able to find somebody that's gonna agree with you 100%. But we still have to come as a community and determine what is our moral requirements to protect children in our community. And we do have multiple ways of explaining how we're going to protect children. Children cannot go buy liquor unless they're a certain age. They cannot buy cigarettes. They cannot go vote. They cannot be drafted. They cannot be considered an adult for contractual purposes on law. There's a reason we do that. It's because children are different than adults. And adults have a responsibility to exercise their responsibilities, their moral responsibility when they're protecting children. And that's really what we're getting to. What is our moral responsibility here? There's a wide range of thought. You can talk to different lawyers and they're going to get different opinions. But I do believe it boils down to what is the moral right thing to do. And I think we're getting there. I think it's just taking time. When we're talking about these issues, we're talking about, you have to understand the nuance. And our collection development policy is what is set in place by the Board of Trustees. We are responsible for that. We give that to the director and the director carries that out. Ultimately, it comes back to the trustees. It is our responsibility. When you look at our requirements that you have placed on the Alpena County website, what our responsibilities are, it's very clear. Our job is to ensure that the staff are given proper guidance. So at the end of the day, it comes back to us, the 5 of us that sit on that board. We have to go through our policies and we're in the middle of doing that. And we've recognized clearly, we've found that there's a problem in our policies. They are deficient in some way, and we are trying to understand how to fix that. From different perspectives, different people have spoken, and we are cognizant of what is the legal requirements. We have to understand what are we putting the county at risk of. But at the same time, we also have to ask, what is the moral requirement for us? We will find, again, every lawyer has a different opinion, just like every accountant has a different opinion when you're doing their taxes. Everybody has a different opinion. But legally, the First Amendment is viewed differently for adults and children. That is clearly the case. Otherwise, we would not have some of the restrictions in place that we do. That's what we have to get to. How do we go about it? We got to drill down to understand what is the true issue. The true issues are our collection development policy. We have to refine that. The door has been opened in a way that we did not anticipate. I guarantee you when Joe sat on this 20 years ago and they created this collection development policy, they did not foresee this issue. This issue, as we all know, has reared its head very recently and a very strong voice throughout this country. This is not something that we were dealing with 10 years ago. I think we can all agree on that. There's been a flood of this suddenly in the last 5, 6, 7 years that seems the floodgates have opened wide. And we have found ourselves in a position where our policy is no longer sufficient to meet the objectives of the community or the responsibilities that we hold. So we have to go dig into that and understand where is it weak? Where did that door get opened and how do we shut it? And I do believe, and I know that I have, by speaking for myself here, I know that many other people hold different opinions. It goes down to what policies we reference in our collection development policy. We reference collection development policy standards set by the American Library Association. That is where the door was opened. When it brings in age in Article 5 and Article 7 as a non-discriminator, that's where the door was opened. We have to go back in and we have to correct that. We have to define it. And that's why people are asking for age-appropriate standards. We have age-appropriate standards. The policy we create at the trustee level, it goes to the director. The director now has clear guidance. She's no longer sitting in the spot where people are directing concerns at her. It should be back to us, the ones that made the policy, right? So we have to drill into that and we have to insert that. And I believe that's what the community is asking for. That's what I'm trying to get to work towards. I think that's what Joe was trying to work for. I think that's what our director is trying to work towards. How do we come to a solution? But it's not an easy discussion. I'm just telling you that. It's very, it goes deep and you have to understand it and you have to follow the breadcrumbs. I think we're going to find it. I think we're going to be able to come up with an age appropriate standard And I think we're gonna be able to define that for our director, so she has the clear guidance she needs. That might try to explain a little bit what's going on. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take.
What kind of timeline do you think you may have on something like that? And then the reason I'm asking is because obviously our feet are to the fire.
Yeah. I wish I could tell you it would be a week or two, but the thing is, we meet once a month. And our director has stated, and she has asked for the community's involvement, and that's right. Our community does need to have a say, but we also have this millage that's bearing down on us very rapidly. And I think we're all very cognizant of that. I can't guarantee you we're gonna have, that to where we want it to be, but I do know that we're working on it. And I do know this is not as fast as I would like to see it go. It's not as fast as in, because I guarantee you that none of us are enjoying the heat, if you want to put it that way. But I think we're all bringing valid concerns, and we have to be willing to sit down and listen to each other. We're trying to do that. But I don't know that I have a good answer for you.
So I'll maybe give a suggestion. There are a lot of times with this board that our feet are held to the fire unexpectedly, and we have to call a lot of special meetings. I would suggest that maybe you guys get together and schedule some additional meetings. I feel like if you went to the public with an effort being made where it showed that, we're trying to figure this out, I think that's going to carry a lot of glow when it's time for that vote. I think it would reassure a lot of the people in the community that their concerns aren't falling on deaf ears. Just my
I
opinion.
think that's a great suggestion. I will take that, and I think we've all heard that, and I would concur with you.
Great. Well, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just want to have one comment too. So I know it was mentioned about us picking the library board of directors. And we pick one new person every year. And I remember you're specific when we were picking you, the specific comment was, at least I made that comment, was that we cannot continue to pick like-minded people, because if we pick the same type of people to be on this board, we're going to get the same result. And I specifically said that because I've known you for years now, but you would be a great asset to that board, and I do respect what you're doing.
Any further comments?
I don't believe we have any other additional questions from the board. Thank you for your time.
Speak.
Ma'am, are you here for a public comment?
Well, actually, I'm the spokesperson for the group that started the appeal,
Okay.
so I have a lot of information on that. My name is Julie Burns,
To do this,
live in Alpena Township.
Yeah, I don't know.
if you give me 1 second, we have our agenda is kind of laid out a little bit unique. Not that you're not going to get a time to speak.
Okay.
You're kind of talking specifically, and I know your stuff is library related. Is there any other questions that we had for Joe or the board or anything?
No, I don't know.
I guess I'll ask, is there any other members of this board that have any questions for the library board or the library folks?
I just think we should go to public comment and limit to 3 minutes and
Okay.
let everybody.
Yep. Is there anything else that the board, any of the members would like to talk about before we move into public comment? Okay, thank you for coming as well. So we're going to move on down the agenda to public comment. And because there are several people here today, we're going to stick with the 3 minutes. You mentioned a second ago, you were kind of the spokesperson for what I assume is a large portion.
Save the Alpena children. Yeah.
So in the event that someone else would like you to finish what you're saying from your group, they would be willing to give up their 3 minutes for you. That would be fine if need be.
I think I can do it in 3 minutes.
John, what time? Thank you.
I have taught high school, community college, and junior high math and sports. And in my 30 years of teaching, this library board is the most unprofessional and unresponsive board that I have dealt with. And I'm going to point that out. I have no confidence that if they come up with a new policy, that they're going to follow it. They didn't follow the old policy, so why are they going to follow the new policy? Reason I say that is there's 5 steps in their policy. Step number 2 is the only time that anyone gets to talk to anybody in this process. And they omitted that. They skipped that. I brought that up at the board meeting when it was at the ACC in February. Nobody said anything, they ignored it. We went ahead and filed the appeal, the full appeal to the board. They have 60 days to come back. Nobody said anything. So I sent them a letter saying, you've skipped step 2, and all the information with that my group wanted to talk about. They come to that meeting where they're going to decide whether they keep that book or not, and they don't even bring it up. If Dustin Budd hadn't said something right at the end of that meeting and forced them to actually do something about step 2, they were going to go ahead and vote on that, ignoring their whole policy. And that board, some of the members of that board were just irate that he had even brought that up, make them follow their own policy. And then they delayed it. They said, okay, we're going to have a little meeting with this group and follow through on step 2. So we do that. Come back to the next board meeting. There's no discussion. They just take a vote. You don't know why. They never tell you anything about that. And even to this day, we have not received an official letter as to what their decision was. If I hadn't been at that board meeting, I wouldn't know. They are so unprofessional. They are unresponsive. As I said, I brought it up in February. Nobody said anything. They just ignored it. This is their policy and they don't follow. So just because they come up with a new policy, this board is going to go the same way. They're going to ignore it. And since they're your responsibility ultimately, I would hope that you would do something about that. Because as a member of this community, I'm not happy with it. Also, the First Amendment. As a veteran, I'm offended that they're hiding behind the First Amendment. There's nothing in the First Amendment that says that book can't be moved to the adult section. And it has been moved to the adult section in other libraries. Negaunee has put it in the adult section, so it's possible to have it there. So again, they're just hiding behind the First Amendment. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to go next.
You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, you can put me on.
It's gonna cut you.
County Commissioner, District 3, 451 Garden Street. My problem with this is kids don't have a voice. We're their voice, right? They don't get to speak up. They don't get to make the policies. That's our job. As commissioners, we appointed you. We expect you to do your job. So these books they're cartoonish. They're using kid words. So understand what you're defending. And the worst part as commissioners, which was so sad, their board of trustees had not read all these books. So the community is having a fit about these books. So sit down at a table and read them. See what our problem is. So yeah, I know that worry. There's nothing wrong with enjoying porn. It's a fun, sugary treat. There's tons of people and communities out there who share your interests and have all kinds of advice. So we're grooming children for sex trafficking. Go home where there's not filtration. Or if the parents have filtration, great. Go find some coffee shop where you can get on the Wi-Fi and find yourself all the porn. Or you can get on chats where a 25-year-old will sex traffic you. We are grooming these kids. And who is stopping them? Nobody. And we're hiding behind the first Constitution. And I am not pro-censorship, but I am pro-youth. I have been involved with the Boys and Girls Club for 8 years as a board member. I was a Michigan representative for 4 years, and I will shout from the rooftops. And you lost my vote for the millage, 1,000%. And everybody I talked to, I said, the trustees are dying on the Hill to sell porn to children, and they will not regulate it. We are simply asking you put them behind the counter, which we did look into, and which is legal and which is done. If a parent wants to teach our children how anal sex is like a train, how to properly put in an anal plug, use the tip of your finger. I'm not kidding. These books are so graphic and with pictures and cartoony, like when the train leaves the station, so to speak. That is porn for more than one person involved with anal sex. So do our children need to know what a train of anal sex is? And how dare we? No, I get to speak. So this is my 3 minutes. You do not get to interrupt my 3 minutes. And I'm telling you, apply broad pressure. Don't forget to douche after anal sex. Do our children need to know this? By the way, some of this I didn't know. And when my children were little, I advocated for the library. I took them. We're going to have cards. I let them run free through the library.
when you guys bragged about how many children went through your library doors last year or last month, that made me physically ill. Because I know those parents did not sit there and look at every book that they were looking through, because you guys aren't doing it either. You guys aren't doing it either. How dare you sell porn to our children and then expect us to vote for your millage? No, I will loudly vote no.
My name is Tracy Collins. I reside in Wilson Township. I've been attending library board meetings for approximately the last 18 months. I know all the library board members by name pretty much, and they know me by name too. First, I want to apologize. I'm going to leave as soon as I'm done speaking so that my children don't have to be subjected to reading from those books anymore, because I don't want my children to be subjected to those books. Although I do agree that I don't want someone from the library telling me that I cannot read a book that I want to read. I do not agree with book banning, and the library board knows that. I do agree with moving them. I just want to share with you some things that are in no order, totally random, that might help you understand some of the stuff that I've learned over the last 18 months. So first of all, I have been told that department directors select books to purchase for their department. They make those recommendations. And since the time that some of this has come to a head, there has been a change in the director for youth services. And now there is a new teenage youth director and also a young, the library board could, and Deborah could better explain that, but there's now two people that take that position and that I understand would be the people who are selecting books. Once a book is brought into a library is where it gets difficult, and then it falls under that policy. And I think the library board does listen. I had concerns about books that were being pushed in the teen book club and also the summer reading program through the last several years. And the board did listen to those concerns, and they had, at that time, the youth director come and speak to the board on how those books were chosen for the club and give a better understanding to the board. Not that I agreed with how it was done, but I feel the board listened to me and did some research on it. I think the big thing is that they are trying to follow those American Library Association recommendations and my moral standards. I don't agree with the American Library Association recommendations that they have. Not everyone has gone through the process of putting a book through reconsideration or challenging a book. Part of it is we verbally hear that, yes, we're being listened to, and yet nothing has changed with any book challenge that has been given. And just as Jessica walked out because she didn't feel that she was being listened to, sometimes we're listened to, but the policy doesn't allow anything to happen. And I agree with Dustin, that policy is in revision and under change, and it's going to take time. It would have been great if things had started 18 months ago instead of about 6 months ago. I agree with the moving of library books. And I now understand that even as a licensed foster parent in Michigan, I cannot supply a child with sexual graphic material, but Michigan laws allow that material in the library. So it's a bigger thing even than just the board. It's a lot of policy and laws. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Boyd, part of the STAG team. Threw away what I was going to say today, and I'm just going to talk to you guys from my heart. This has always been about tools. If you get people who are unprofessional in their jobs and are bound and determined, no matter what, to do what they want to do and not really listen, this is what we end up with, what we have here today. And that's how we've been treated through this whole thing. It's wrong. We have never asked to ban the book. First of all, Julie asked, put the book in the adult section. When they said no, she said she wanted to appeal it. They took her in a room with 3 of them and 1 of her. And they were nasty. And then in front of a public forum, they tore her apart, said she was so angry and ugly that they would not meet with her. She wasn't the one that was the problem. They are. There are some people who are working in this library who I think you've seen today who need to go. They are not looking after our interests, our community. And we offered many choices for tools. We said, dump ALA. join CLA, a conservative library group. That's more to the liking of our community. We're conservative here. Nope, that's not going to happen. Okay, so now we have to follow ALA's guidelines, right? So we say, put it in the adult section so that the parents that you say are responsible can reasonably assume, just reasonably assume that that's something they should check out before their kids check it out. Nope, not going to do that. Okay, so we said, tag the book, graphic sex on this, leave it in the youth section. Nope, not going to do that. So we said, what else did we say? I don't remember the third thing we said, but you know, we gave them choices. We said, just give us the tool. We said, put signs in the library saying graphic sex could be in any of these, which they thought was stupid. It's not stupid. We're asking for tools. We, the parents and grandparents of the kids in this community, need to have a reasonable and acceptable solution to knowing that we're going to have this kind of stuff in that library. If you're putting it in there and you're not willing to give us the tools to know where it is, then you're grooming our children. And that's what we're down to today. And that's why we are angry. And that's why we have no choice. It's not that we don't want to use the library, but we have no choice. We are not going to let this happen in our community. And we will do everything we can. And we have been doing everything we can. And we totally appreciate you guys for what you've done, at least listening, because the others do not.
Thank you.
I'm Bruce Heath, from Ossining. I got myself out of my skis on the Alpena School District. I apologize for that. But I'm not over my skis on this topic. In all the heat of the Facebook comment that I made, I got a response from the Assistant Director, Jessica Luther. It was an article that said there should be no age appropriate limits on any books. That's where these folks are coming from. That's what I have to say.
Thank you.
John Gilnut, Crapo Street, used to be a county commissioner. As a matter of fact, this was brought to my attention, probably 3 years ago, and I went over and spoke to someone. This was when there was a teen room. Excuse me. My understanding was that it was for, 12 to 16, whatever the age limit was, and parents could go in with their child. This was brought to me, by some, local ministers. So I went over there and talked to the lady that was in charge of that room. And so I walked into her desk and the first thing I see is a pride flag sitting on the desk. I could care less if you're gay, queer, doesn't matter to me. But you notice things. So we talked a little bit about the books, and I think I might have been the one that called Dustin and told him he might want to go to the next library board meeting, find out what's going on. Now, I know they have policies and I know they have procedures, and I know that I've been involved in the government over 25 years. We follow those policies and procedures. But as a recommendation to the board, when they're hiring people, one of the things I always did as a building official at the city of Alpena was when I was out in the streets doing things, you hear all the things that the elected officials never hear, because people don't want to talk to them. They want to talk to other people. If you find something out, you better be letting your boss. When I train new people working in the government, I always tell them, don't let the elected officials be blindsided. So as I sat here listening to all this today, I'm thinking, who in the hell bought that book? I get it. The board doesn't pick out every book. They go to some socialist, federalist thing. Here's the book we want to read, your kids to read so we can adopt them. Who in the hell bought that book? And then didn't immediately say, wait a minute. Before, I know once it's in the library, you got a bunch more rules, but who the hell put it in there? Who read that book and thought, in this community, in this county, in this northeastern Michigan, this wasn't going to be a problem? That's what really sets me back on this thing. And so is somebody not qualified to hold that position? I don't know. How many mistakes does somebody get to made on basically what's government money, taxpayer money, before they have to go? Before we have to make a change? But I, as one person, you know, I've worked for other counties and they're always, oh, we can't get sued, we can't get sued. I could care less about getting sued. If you're getting sued for the right reason, standing up for your morals, standing up for what you believe in, what we believe in as a region, whether it's 51% or 49%. That's money well spent. A lot better than the county city water fight, by the way, but. And this thing has been going on longer than most people know about it. And 13 books, I didn't even know how many there was, because I don't read that much anymore. But 13 books, shove them behind the counter. Hey, you want to check out the book? Here it is. You come check it out if we're open. You're going to get sued over that? You know, that's the thing about lawyers. There's always one on either side of the case, and they're both going to win when they're talking to their clients, right? So that's not an exact science either, but like I said, it's just kind of appalling. But if this library wants this millage to pass, they better make some adjustments. And the comment about having a special meeting or whatever it takes to move this forward would be good. Because I have friends that work at the library family. I certainly don't want to see it closed down, because I don't know what they're going to do with that property.
Thank you.
I'm Tony Miller. I've spoken before. I live here in Alpena. And unlike some of the other people, I've pretty much tossed out what I planned to say. And I'm just going to highlight a bunch of points because there's so many, not a simple situation. 30% of all male children are molested in some way compared to 40% of females. It is possible for sexual abuse to occur even if no sexual contact is made. No touching is still sexual abuse. The trauma that results from sexual abuse is a syndrome that affects not just the victim and their family, but all of society. Because sexual abuse, molestation, and rape are such shame-filled events, our culture tends to suppress that information. It's like, for me, is the ooh kind of response. Part of the problem is that when children are molested, they don't have the language to describe what happened. And many times the coping mechanism which saves the child from a horrible injustice and abuse psychologically, they shut it down. They don't even remember it. It can be 20, 30, 40 years, especially if there's no therapy or any follow-up. Another point I want to make is grooming. There is so much information out there. If you go onto the internet and look up sexual grooming, you will see that there are many, many forces that want to bring sexual education to infants to 5-year-olds, because it's so important that they know that their sexuality is who they are. A 5-year-old? No. Most of the time, Mother Nature gives us the hormones in adolescence to start taking on that information. But I think 8-year-olds ought to be out on the playground fighting over the rules so they can learn how to deal with relationships and themselves, work things out, and move from there. Having sexual abuse does not teach them those things. It teaches them that they are a victim and somebody else is in control. I have a handout that I didn't get to you folks ahead of time, but let me pass this over to you to get to the board members, please. There's a whole list of symptoms that happen as a result of sexual abuse. You're all in mistrust of adults, suicidality, difficulty relating to others except in sexual or seductive ways, refusal to go to school, to a doctor or home, secretiveness, or unusual aggressiveness. This is not healthy behavior. And we see this more and more in our culture as a result. My 3 minutes. Reading a book is not therapy. Reading a book and trying to get help is not a therapy for sexual abuse.
Thank you.
Morning.
Could you share your name with us, sir?
Yeah, Brandon Ross,
Thank you.
28 years old. I'm a Michigan resident, of course. Alpena is my hometown. I lived here all my life, born and raised. They say history repeats itself. How many have heard that book bannings is fascism? How many have heard of the Nazi book burnings? We hear that a lot. Well, what kind of books did the Nazis burn? It's strange how that part is never mentioned. Magnus Hirschfeld, Magnus, last name, Hirschfeld. This man was a Jewish author in Europe. The books that this man wrote were about transgenderism, homosexuality, pornography, and pedophilia. These are the kind of books the Nazis burned. The evil Nazis wanted to rid Europe of this perversion, to keep it away from their people, away from their children. Now, to the frustrated parents, I ask you, can you blame them? You know, Memorial Day was not that long ago. Is this what our brave World War II veterans fought and bled for? I have a book for you, the Talmud, Talmud. In this Jewish holy book, there are 8 different genders. 8 different genders. I forgot to mention, I want to commend you, Mr. William, you, Miss Brenda, my eyesight isn't so good anymore, and you, Mr. John. At this point, you should be noticing something. Now, I could stand up here and give you guys true history. I could proceed to give you the cold, hard truth about what is going on in America and Europe. But you guys can discover the truth for yourself. All you need is to be pointed in the right direction. Everyone listening, specifically the parents, if you want to discover the truth and understand what is going on and why this vile agenda is taking place, I have good news. The answer is at your fingerprints, at your fingertips. Visit gtvflyers.com. gtvflyers.com. That being said, may the Lord keep our children safe. Christ is King. Heil Hitler.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jackie Bordeaux, and I live in Presqu'île Township. I'm speaking as a mother of 4, grandmother of 12, public school teacher for 21 years. I taught 2nd grade, private school teacher for 3 years. One of the speakers at the May 28th meeting with the county commissioners cited queer theory as the motivating ideology for placing books whose aim is to shock, sexualize, and normalize perversion into the hands of our children. The following is a definition of queer by David Halperin, a promoter of queer theory as cited in the book, The Queering of the American Child. And I ordered this book. It's by Logan Lansing with James Lindsay. So queer, as David Halperin writes, need not be grounded in any positive truth or in any stable reality. As the very word implies, queer does not name some natural kind or refer to some determinate object. It acquires its meaning from its oppositional relationship to the norm. A quote from David Halperin. Queer is by definition whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. There is nothing in particular to which it necessarily refers. It is an identity without an essence. So essence is defined as the most important aspect of something, the unchanging nature of a thing. So if queer is an identity without an essence, that means it only exists to be against what's normal and legitimate. Since it does not possess its own essence, it is a parasite which sucks the life out of its host, the normal, the legitimate, the dominant, until both are destroyed. The final end of the queer religion is the destruction of the lives of children and families and society. In the end, queer is anti-human because it destroys what every human heart yearns for, the true, the good, and the beautiful. We are at a crossroads. We can let the parasite of queer do its work of destroying its host, which is our Christian civilization, or we can do everything in our power to stop this parasite that has targeted society through innocent and vulnerable children. These books, which have no redeeming merit because they promote queerness, which according to Halperin is an identity without an essence, do not belong in the hands of children or adults. They do not belong in our library.
Thank you. Do we have any other comment? With no one else coming forward, do we have anybody online?
Someone's raising their hand.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. This is obviously a pretty hot topic for our community, and with the millage, right, holding us to the fire. It's certainly it needs attention. I would also definitely like to thank the 4 folks from the library that have sat here knowing you were walking into an unfriendly situation here today. I thank you for sharing your opinion, bringing us some details as well. And frankly, thank you for sticking around and what everyone had to say. Thank everyone for coming out. If there's no other public comment, I would look for a motion to adjourn. But, before I make the motion, I again would like to thank everybody because the library is a very important piece of our community. And the board members of the library and the people sitting here are here because they want that to stay. I would like to think that obviously we could all live in this community together and find some ground that is going to work for everybody. Hard to pacify everyone, but we all do have to live in this community together. So thanks again. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
A motion from John.
I'll second.
Support from Bill. Thanks for everyone for coming. Meeting adjourned.